Greetings, Virgo and Virgo rising. This is your Western forecast for May 2025. I like to start with where's the sun shining? When was the last new moon? The last new moon was in Taurus, an earth sign compatible with Virgo, an earth sign, falling 9 signs past Virgo. So it was really lighting up and holding that Taurus energy through the 20th of May, when the sun leaves Taurus and goes into Gemini. So with that new moon Taurus energy in the 9th, because Taurus is 9 signs past Virgo, there's a real emphasis on media, marketing, education, maybe traveling with that 9th house. But you're entering, along with all the other signs, a major shift of consciousness, a paradigm shift, if you will. Why all the superlatives? Because Neptune went into Aries last month, first time in 166 years, and Saturn at the end of May the 24th is joining Neptune in Aries as Saturn moves into Aries for the first time in 29 and a half years. The Neptune is the vision, the dream. Saturn can anchor it in, manifest it, and make it real. And now, if you know a little astrology, you know sometimes Saturn and Neptune can be very discouraging and disappointing, because if it's making any difficult aspects to a harsh planet in your chart, or if there was kind of more harsh planetary transits to the Saturn-Neptune, then many times the dark side of Saturn-Neptune is escaping Neptune, your responsibility, Saturn. Neptune, Saturn, people get sick, they get depressed, they drink, they just escape reality. This happens that's a 38-year cycle. But it's not happening to the world this time, because Pluto, powerful transformational Pluto, has now just moved into Aquarius, an air sign, compatible with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, a fire sign. But Uranus is every 84 years, this July, is moving into Gemini, an air sign. So you have these two outer planets. Outer planets are life-changing energies, profound energies, are both in air signs, positively supported Saturn, Neptune in Aries, a fire sign. So the best of Saturn and Neptune, making your dreams, your visions, your idealistic aspirations, Neptune, more real. Saturn, Neptune, this time around, can make many of your dreams a reality. Now, before I break it all down, because the Neptune's in Aries is 8 signs past Virgo, so is Saturn. And Venus, that planet of relationships, it's also a planet of finance and desire, is in Aries through this month, once a year. So we got Venus, Neptune, Saturn all aligned in Aries, which is 8 signs past Virgo. The 8th house is very complicated and layered. But before I go down that road, if you enjoy these kinds of videos and would like to see more of them, click like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the notification bell so you can receive the latest postings. All right, let's just break it down step by step. The 8th house deals with your shared resources, your partner's monies, the 8th house can deal with all your financial responsibilities. It's where we look to for issues with taxes, with insurance, with loans, settlements, inheritance. That's and anybody comes to me and they want to ask questions in any of those topics, I start looking to the 8th house. On another level, the 8th house also deals with loss and death, because the 8th sign of the zodiac is Scorpio, and Scorpio is about death and rebirth. But the positive of that energies of transformation and death is going through a profound transformation. So the 8th house can also be where we look to for psychology, therapy, astrology. So this Venus, Neptune, Saturn could be really pulling you with a strong interest into astrology, psychology, on a more ethereal level. There could be some major endings, but it's also awakening this a new rebirth, because it's about endings and new beginnings. So as I was saying, the 8th house can be very complicated. One of the 8th house, because it's the natural house of Scorpio, is sex, and we're going to talk about Venus, Neptune, where that's relationships. But the 8th house, Scorpio, is also where we look to for wealth, because it deals with finance and joint ventures, inheritance and settlements, unexpected windfalls of monies. That's all under the domain of the 8th house. Now, Venus, the planet of love and creativity and harmony, went into Aries back in February, retrograded March the 1st. By April, it had retrograded back into Pisces to tie up loose ends with Pisces. But as we go into May, Venus, benefic, desirous, loving, creative Venus, went back into Aries, into the 8th house, joining Neptune that started last month. Neptune, all that dreamy, creative, romantic energy. Let's stay with romance. Venus and Neptune can really inspire a tremendous amount of romanticism, infatuation. With the 8th house, because it's the house of Scorpio, it could also be a hidden, secretive infatuation or love affair. On another level, it goes, the house of Scorpio, the 8th house, can go very deep and become very transformational. So the Venus-Neptune in the 8th can trigger tremendous intimacy, almost feeling like a soulmate connection. But with Venus-Neptune, you have to make sure that you're being realistic, because Neptune can certainly be dreamy and romantic and idealistic, but it can also be unrealistic and delusional. Now, the good news is Saturn is a 29.5-year cycle. Saturn is moving into Aries on May the 24th through August the 31st. Then it retrogrades back into Pisces, and then by next February, it's back into Aries for a couple of years, joining Neptune in Aries. So that Saturn and Neptune is when you could be manifesting, Saturn, your dreams, your vision. Falling in the 8th house could be with big business and joint ventures and financial contracts. It's all that 8th house. That Venus-Neptune, outside of all that, well, did I finish that thought? Yes. So Venus-Neptune can be very heady and romantic. And in the 8th house, trigger a lot of deep intimacy. But you could be unrealistic. You could be having romantic rose-colored glasses on. The Saturn will bring you down to earth. And if it's not good for you, whether you consciously are aware of it or not, the Saturn can separate you from a deceptive, delusional relationship. But if it is, a supportive, favorable relationship, because it's touching on such a deep level, then that Saturn can make the romantic, dreamy aspect of it more real. That is, the Saturn can now start bringing in longevity to this romantic fantasy. The Saturn can bring in a commitment for the long term. Now, Aries is ruled by Mars. And Mars is the warrior, assertive, aggressive, confident energies. Mars will be in the 12th house because it's in Leo, the sign prior to Virgo. There's 12 signs of the zodiac. When Mars is in the sign prior to your sun sign or rising sign, it's in the 12th house. Mars in the 12th house. Let's start with all the positive because it's in harmony with Venus, especially Venus, but all the Venus, Neptune, Saturn, and Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars, so the ruling planet of Aries is Mars in Leo, which is in harmony with Aries because they're all fire signs. There's a lot of passion. And Venus trining Mars, Venus trining Mars, Mars trining Venus, can be very sexual, passionate energies, very creative energies. But the Mars is in the 12th house. The 12th house and the 8th house are similar in nature in that it's the sectors of the chart where information is hidden or secretive or maybe even into denial. So that Venus Neptune in the 8th and Venus trine Mars, you could be starting an intensely sexual, romantic relationship that you need to keep secret, or for obvious reasons perhaps, or you want to keep it private. And because it's so intense, maybe you don't trust it, that it's going to last. So you want to keep it secret from your friends until you know if this has any longevity. And you will know that when Venus goes into grounding Taurus, favorable with Virgo and Earth sign in June. And Mars in June leaves Leo and goes into Virgo. So if you're in a heady, romantic, infatuated time in May, enjoy it. But don't really think about the future until you get to the middle of June to see if it was real or not. But if it's real, it could be lasting a long time. The new moon is on May the 26th. But let's back up. The new moon's in Gemini on May the 26th at 6 degrees. The sun goes into Gemini on May the 20th for 4 weeks. So the sun in Taurus is leaving the 9th house of all that marketing, education, teaching, learning, etc., going into the 10th. Now your focus is on your long-range career goals and aspirations and life purpose. The new moon is when your attention is being really crystallized and focused with 10th house matters, because the new moon's in Gemini, 10 signs past Virgo. That's May the 26th. So that last week of May is also when Saturn, May the 24th, goes into Aries. And it's now time to either start to see reality and or to make commitments, to take on more responsibilities for these 8th house, which could has so much to do with finances, but it could also be dealing with astrology, psychology, maybe wanting to become a therapist or become a full-time astrologer. But with that end of May going into June, with the focus on career matters, a lot of things in May is in development and getting really excited and doing a lot of learning or promotion and marketing. You'll see where everything is going, what's real and what was just a flash in the pan by the middle of June. But this is a big paradigm shift with Venus and Neptune and Saturn all in Aries. And in your 8th house, you could be forming a joint venture. You could be forming a business partnership. That could be the 8th house. You might come into inheritance that changes your life, or a settlement. Or you might be, going into astrology and psychology and going and helping others, or going through a lot of inner transformational energy for yourself. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.